Hello, my crafty friends. So today I have a few more card ideas to share with you that feature the layering of shapes. Although today we are going to focus on just a little different type of layering using some triangle shapes. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 3 different ways you can use triangle shapes in your card making. Now the cards in this video feature the Triangle stamp set from Stampin Up, and they also feature these fun stitched triangle shapes. Of course, triangles make the perfect little Christmas trees, so that is what we will focus on in our card making for today. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start with this first card idea. So this is just a real simple layering technique using some of the triangle shapes in the stamp set. And of course, those shapes also coordinate with that stitched triangle die set. So let me show you how to make this card. So you're going to start with a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock for the base of your card. And this card base is the standard card base. It measures 5.5 by 8.5 inches, scored in the middle at 4 1/4 inches to create the base of the card. Next, you are going to cut a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock. Now, I did some embossing on the top part of this cardstock using one of the embossing folders in the Wrapped in Texture embossing folder packet. There's actually 2 embossing folders in there. I'm just using this little polka dot pattern. So I just did some partial embossing, just kind of embossed the top part here. So the reason I did the partial embossing is because the next thing I want to do is I want to add a piece of pattern paper down on the bottom. So this piece is 2 by 4 inches. So typically what I would do is adhere this piece to my white cardstock. I'd adhere the pattern paper to my white cardstock, and then I would send it through the embossing machine. That way I know exactly how far to come down with my embossing. So we'll go ahead and add this piece to the bottom. Now before we adhere this to the card, I'm going to tie a little bit of ribbon around the card right across where that seam is between the pattern paper and the embossing folder. So I'm just using some of the Real Red sheer ribbon. So I usually cut about a 12-inch piece. So the piece should be just long enough so that you could tie a little bow here. Now notice how I'm tying my bow upside down. I find that if you tie it upside down, it seems to lay better. Okay, so once you have your bow tied on there, then you can go ahead and adhere this to your card front. Okay, next I just cut a rectangular shape. I use the Stitch So Sweetly dies, but you can just cut a regular piece of white cardstock. So this is about 2 by 3 1/8 inch. So I'm just gonna stamp a little greeting down here on the bottom. So I just inked it up with some Mossy Meadow ink, and then we just stamped the little greeting on there. Okay, so we're just gonna set this aside now that we have that done. And then I'm gonna use one of the triangle shapes from the set, one of the dies from the set. So I just cut out a triangular shape from a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock. And then I'm going to take a scrap piece of paper, just some white cardstock here. And now I'm going to stamp this tree image from the set. So it's a 2-step stamping. So first I'm going to stamp the flowers so they look like little poinsettias. And then there's an overlay image that coordinates with this particular image. And I'm going to use Mossy Meadow ink for this. And so this is the leaves. These are the leaves that coordinate with that particular image. Okay, so now we'll cut this out. This triangular shape fits perfectly. So that's the cool thing about that die set, is it coordinates with everything in this set, in the triangle set. So let's cut this out and put together our card. All right, next we're going to layer these 2 together. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue here because I want these 2 to layer together nicely. I just find it's easier if you layer them together first and then glue them, so that then we can go ahead and add some dimensionals and glue them down to the card. But before I do that, I want to stamp the little tree trunk. So I'm just using some crumb cake ink, and there's this little tiny image here. So I want to kind of lay this on here, and I'm going to start, I think, with this top one. So I want to kind of eyeball where it's going to go and then stamp it. So this is probably the trickiest part. So then for this other one, I just want to scoot that out of the way and stamp my image. And then I can go ahead and pop these up on the card. Okay, so that's probably the trickiest part, is stamping those little tree trunks. But once you have them stamped, then you can just layer your trees on there like that. Okay, so let's put the rest of our card together. All right, so I've just added some dimensionals to the back here, and I'm just gonna tuck this right underneath that ribbon. And that's it. So how adorable is that? Okay, and then for the finishing touch, you can add some little embellishments to your card. And then on the inside, I just did a little bit of decorating. So I just stamped that same image on the inside and added a little bit of designer paper. So super cute. Okay, for the second card idea, I actually decided to use the little triangular shapes to kind of decorate my card. So I layered them right on top of this embossed piece of cardstock. And then of course I created my focal point. So let me show you how to make this one. Okay, so again, we're going to start with a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock for the base of our card. Then you're going to cut a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock, and I embossed it with that same embossing folder. And the next thing I did is I used that same triangular die. So it's the same size that fits this tree here. And I cut 2 pieces of patterned paper. And what I'm going to do is adhere them to each side of this cardstock piece. So it'll just kind of make a nice little accent. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so once you have your pieces attached, then you can go ahead and wrap some ribbon around there. So I'm just using the same real red ribbon. And I'm going to tie my bow kind of way over to the side here. Okay, so once you have your bow tied on, then you can go ahead and adhere this to your card front. Then I just cut another piece of white cardstock using the Stitched So Sweetly die, the same one I just shared with you in the last card. Then you go ahead and you stamp the greeting on the bottom. And then this time I already cut out my triangular shape, so I created it the exact same way as I shared with you with the previous card. So the only thing I'm going to do with this is just stamp my little tree trunk using some crumb cake ink. And then I'm going to add my little tree. So there we go. And then you can go ahead and tuck that underneath your ribbon there and add it to your card front. So there you go. So it's just a fun way to use the little triangular shapes to create a fun design on your card. And of course you can embellish it with whatever you like. I did a little bit of stamping and embellishing on the inside. I used some designer paper, and again, that same image that I used on the front, I also stamped it on the inside. So another super cute card and pretty quick and simple to do. Okay, so this last card idea is just a variety of different triangular shapes for the trees that are layered together on the card to create this fun little Christmas forest. So let me show you how to make this. So you're again going to start with a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock for the base of your card. So I'm just going to set this aside for now. And we are going to focus on this 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock. So we're going to do a little stamping on this first. So I'm just going to stamp my greeting on the bottom so I can kind of use that as a guide as I go along, as I start putting the trees on my card. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp my center tree because that's going to kind of guide the placement of all the other trees. So I'm going to try to stamp it down kind of as far as I can go, I guess. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my little tree trunk here on the bottom. And then I'm just going to start layering these other trees. So I'm going to lay them out first before I actually adhere them to the card because I need to stamp all those little tree trunks. So if I lay these out then that will help me with the placement of those tree trunks. All right, so we're gonna start here. And so just take them one at a time, and then you can just slide, you know, kind of slide the tree away once you decide where your spot is. You can slide that tree away and bring it back. And then we'll do the same over here. So notice how I'm just kind of sliding these little shapes out of the way and then bringing them back so that I can continue to line everything up. So it's a little bit tricky, but it's really fun. It has a really cool look when it's done. All right, so now I can go ahead and adhere all of these. So I'm just gonna start over here on the right. So I'll just adhere this tall tree first. So I'm just popping it up with a couple dimensionals. And then this one, I'm going to add just a couple dimensionals on the right-hand side and a little bit of liquid glue on the left side, because the part where the liquid glue is, that's gonna overlap onto this big tree here. So I only want dimensionals on this side, otherwise the whole thing will be kind of warped. So we don't want warped trees, right? Okay, so these next two, let's take these off. So I have these two pieces left, so I'm going to adhere this one first. And then this one is going to overlap onto that one. So I think we're ready to adhere this to our card front. So to finish off the card, you can just add some little embellishments. I just used some little red rhinestones to decorate the front of the card. And then on the inside, I again did some stamping and used that same pattern paper that I used on the outside. I used that to decorate the inside. Okay, so how cute is this card? Okay, so there you go. Now you have 3 different ways that you can layer triangles together to create some fun Christmas cards. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.